And to give us more context on this new system is Mark Weiss. He's a pilot and president of the Weiss Consulting Group. He joins us now from the state of Maryland. Mark, thanks for joining us.
Nice to talk with you tonight. Thank you.
So how outdated is civil aviation monitoring around the world?
Well, primarily what you've got is systems dating back to the Second World War, and actually even just around the late 30s. So it's been upgraded, but it's pretty much outmoded. And as we've seen in the last numbers of years, there have been incidents around the globe where aircraft have been lost and we haven't been able to find them.
Well, I'll get to that in just a moment, but planes have been flying for generations, as you mentioned. Why is it taking so long to get real-time monitoring and tracking, and does this require some sort of cross-governmental agreements?
Well, it certainly does, and you have to understand that there's a lot of proprietary information that goes out, and companies are not necessarily eager to share some of this. But some of what's happened over the years is that the technology, while the aircraft themselves have been growing and now able to cross oceans much easier than they ever have in the past, the technology hasn't quite kept up with it. It's pretty much been a land-based operation, and so that you have not been able to follow aircraft over oceans. And the other part of that is that some countries oftentimes were a little hesitant to expose their satellite navigation systems to the rest of the world. That's changing.
So what needs to happen? You say that's changing, but what more needs to happen to get there?
Well, since actually, if you go back to 2009, when the Air France 447 was lost coming out of Rio de Janeiro going to Paris, and it took 2 years to find that aircraft. And then sadly, in 2014, in March of 2014, we had the Malaysia 370 incident. To this day, we still haven't found that aircraft. Those were the impetus, really, to start driving organizations like ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization, to come up with standards that would be used across the boards, that countries could accept, and terminology could be used, and aircraft manufacturers and countries alike would bond together to try and make aviation much more safer based upon new technologies and satellites being used internationally for everybody.
So, Mark, you mentioned MH370, that flight which vanished. We still have not found it. How long before we see some of this technology become successful? Could we find that flight, for example, within months or years?
Well, I don't know that you're going to be able to find that flight now, because the technology that we're talking about is really satellite-based information, where an aircraft flying over unpopulated areas of either desert or oceans will now be sending signals to a satellite rather than to a land-based operation, a radar operation on the ground that would transmit it to an air traffic control facility. So now what you're having is that this information will go to a satellite and then be transmitted. The optimistic attitude was 2018. Perhaps by 2020, most of the aircraft would have it. And by 2025, I think you'll see this on a regular part of operation, and you'd start to be taking it for granted.
All right, Mark Weiss with Weiss Consulting Group. As always, we appreciate your time.
Thank you.